Gracie Jiu Jitsu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jitsu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jitsu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jitsu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jitsu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. All right, welcome to episode 142 of the Gracie Jiu Jitsu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. Today, Ryron Gracie is back on the show, and I'm excited about that. Always a pleasure to speak with Ryron. We'll get to that in just a moment, but before we do, I wanted to take a moment and share my joy with you. And what am I joyous about? Well, I'm grateful for a lot of things in my life, but it just so happens that 2 years ago today, I went to Las Vegas and competed and won gold in the Masters BJJ World Championships. And it popped up in my Facebook memories today, so it makes me really happy. What makes it even more special is that, for someone to not be very competition focused, my jiu-jitsu is more about self-defense, self-growth, that kind of thing. So for me to be able to go into a big stage and do so well, it means even more for me. So anyway, happy about that and just wanted to share that with you. It was a peak experience in my life for sure. So, all right. Wanted to give a quick shout out to Doug Wright. Doug has been kind enough to help me with my mobility via Skype for several months now. Very generous with his time and his knowledge and information. So it's been helping me a lot. I'm really focused on mobility right now and staying as mobile as possible as I get older. So shout out to Doug. Thanks a lot, my friend. All right, Ryron Gracie. In this interview, we get into a lot of different things, updates us about what he and his family have going on. We talk about his recent interest and practice in cold plunges. We talk about the 32 principles and how they came about, kind of what they mean. We hit on GST and its importance. And then we also discuss sexual predators in jiu-jitsu and how that's been a big thing of late. So I know you're going to enjoy this interview. After the interview, please make sure you take time to stick around for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. And without further ado, let's talk to Ryron. All right, I'm speaking with Ryron Gracie. Welcome to the show, Ryron.
Hi, Marty. Good to talk to you again.
Always a pleasure for sure. And a lot of things going on, a lot of things happening. I want to ask you about several things, but first I just want to say, check in. How are you and your family doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for asking. My kids are getting older, so it's been fun watching them learn stuff and grow into some sort of independence and they want to go off on their own sometimes and don't walk with me, or I'll go by myself, I'll be right back, which is a tricky phase because, 4 years ago they didn't want to go anywhere. They would hold my hand every second and I was carrying them all the time, carrying two kids at once, but now they're growing up, so I enjoy that. I'm excited for them to grow up, and they're also more than ever excited about jiu-jitsu. And they're wanting to go to class all the time. And let's go to jiu-jitsu, And I say, listen, I don't want to take you today. I just taught for these hours, and I'm going to go teach more tonight. I don't want to drive you back and forth. And they're like, Dad, but you do jiu-jitsu every day. So I'm
That's
like,
really cool.
Man,
that's very cool.
I do it every day, but you guys need to slow down.
Right.
But it's great. So it's been amazing. The kids are great, and Victoria is very good. She's more than ever motivated, and she just, the other day I spoke to her on Instagram Live. She logged on. I was asking people about morning routines, and she's been very dedicated to her morning routine of exercising and going to the gym, which a lot of people did not do that kind of stuff during COVID, and just in general, it's hard to do.
Right.
It's not for everybody. But she's been very dedicated, so I'm very proud of her for that.
That's awesome. And I saw her pop on yesterday. I was able to be on that, and the energy is wonderful, and the commitment. So, that's contagious when you see people doing that. And it's so important to own the morning, the old expression, own the morning, own your life, right? Yeah, you got it. But let me comment on something you just said. I like how I think for a lot of parents, it's a beautiful thing, of course, seeing each stage and watching your kids grow and develop. But for a lot of parents, they hate seeing one stage end and the next one come. They're kind of like, or seeing some independence. I've heard this from a lot of times. They love having them small and little and independent. But I can tell you're fully embracing that journey of your girls and each little bit of independence they're taking and walking along their own way.
Yeah, I feel like so much of what I've done over the last 6 and 8 years was to make them independent.
Yes.
All of our parenting, so much of this has been spearheaded by Victoria. Victoria, as a mom, is like, blows my mind every day. And so I'm like, this is exactly what I raised them for. This is exactly what they're being raised for. It goes the same for dating. One father could say, yeah, no one's going to ever date her till she's 18. And in my mind, I'm like, no, I can't wait till she dates somebody when she's 13 or whatever age it is. It could be 11, it could be 12. You think she has a little boyfriend crush, one of my daughters. That's what I've raised them to be prepared for.
That's great.
So I'm not at all. Am I nervous? Yes, but my nervousness can also be excitement.
Sure.
It's kind of a blend of excitement and nerves, which is exactly how you approach many things in life.
That's right.
I'm nervous about it, but I'm also excited about it, and therefore I'm going to do it. I'm going to let the excitement lead the way.
Yeah, I love that, because it doesn't hold you back, but it also doesn't deny that, okay, it's okay to feel human emotions, and nervousness and excitement are all part of those. So it's all part of the equation.
Yes.
That's great. And you guys moved not that long ago, right?
Yeah, I moved maybe 3 months, 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago.
How are you enjoying the new place?
I love it. I was living in a home, I don't know, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And then right before COVID hit, I didn't even know COVID was good. No, obviously, nobody knew. It was happening in Asia, and I think January 2020. And a little bit before that, I thought to myself, man, I got to live next to the ocean. How can I not live by the beach? I live here in, LA, and there's a beach right there. I should be able to walk to the beach. So I moved out of our house. We sold our house, and we went, and I rented a little condo on the beach.
Nice.
Which is amazing, because I get to walk to the beach. How can I turn 40, one day, and not be able to walk to the beach in my lifetime?
Exactly.
Especially living here. If you live in another state, okay, you don't have that option. You
right.
live in a different state. You have other places to walk to. So I moved. The problem was, obviously, COVID hit 2 months later, and it was a very small place. And the kids didn't have a backyard. They couldn't go in the front yard because it was a very transient neighborhood, right? So the kids were kind of always in the house, and we had many lockdowns. The beaches were closed. So after like 5, 6, 7 months, it was kind of getting a little difficult for the kids, even though I wasn't teaching as much and I was home more. Either way, you know how being outside is so important. And we had a backyard when we lived in our previous house, so it was a big change. So after a year of living on the beach, we found a place to live. It has another home, and smaller home than before, which perfect amount of home, everything I could ask for. and now we're living there. It's been a blast.
Awesome,
Kids
man.
love it. They don't want to leave their home.
That's great. It's great when you have a home that you feel that attached to or connected with. That's a great place to be. So you mentioned the. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, when it comes to like a home that you're attached to, I'm not attached to it, but I'm in a very fortunate position where wherever I lay down and go to sleep, I feel like it's my home.
Mm.
And it doesn't take much for me to build a connection to a place. And I feel that's partially because of jiu-jitsu. I could be, in a container, in the middle of Oregon, and I could feel at home there. And there's a certain confidence within myself, a certain trust with the location that obviously if I'm living somewhere and I'm getting my head rained on, I'm not going to have comfort. But if I'm, if there's sufficient shelter, I feel very good. So, and that's a very unique thing I'm realizing. People sometimes, they really need a certain place to live or certain, type of living. And that's not wrong at all. Everybody's got to do what they got to do. But I personally, I'm realizing how little I need to be happy when it comes to my living situation. And I'm very grateful for that. And I can't help but, attribute that to jiu-jitsu, where I can sleep somewhere and I just feel so safe. And jiu-jitsu is so powerful for so many reasons, and that's one that I was not so aware of until the last couple of years.
That's great. It sounds very liberating to be in that state. And when I said attached to your home, not the best word, but connection is much better. And I've often used, I think I heard it from you first, if not first, certainly I've heard it, the notion of being connected but not attached. So I've really definitely tried to apply that in various aspects of my life. So let's talk about your cold baths, because I know that's something you've recently got into. You were doing, sometimes you'll do Instagram live videos either right in it or after it, and that's cool. So tell us what drew you to that and what that's been like so far.
It's been great, the cold plunge. I've always, living by the beach for that year, I kind of made a commitment to go into the ocean every day. Now, I moved to the beach, I think it was February 25th or something of 2020. And so it's pretty chilly, the ocean. It could be like 55 degrees, 54 degrees, I believe. So that first year, and then through November, December, January of 2020, I'm going in the ocean almost every single day living there. And the water was very cold, and it's moving water, and there's waves coming. I'm, diving under waves, and I'm just body surfing, and I'm just sitting in the water by myself, and there's no one at the beach at all. And I would do it. We're in lockdown. We're teaching much less classes. People are not allowed to go to restaurants. All the restaurants are closed near my house. So I'm going in the ocean, and I'm loving it. Even though it's cold, what I'm feeling, the hour after, the hours after I get out of the ocean, it's just too good. It's such a great feeling throughout my whole body. So as COVID starts coming to an end, and it's still happening, obviously, but as it's starting to become a little bit more open and I begin to move, I started looking up cold plunges, and I found the plunge. And I've been going in it now for the past, I got it probably, 4.5 months ago. I got it before I moved in. My house was kind of being fixed up a little bit before I moved in, and it was there. And ever since I've moved in, I've gone probably, 60 days straight, maybe 65 days now. In the last 2.5 months of living there, I haven't pretty much missed one day. I missed one day, and I took a cold shower somewhere. I was out of town. But it's been amazing. And the other day, somebody asked me, they said, how has the cold plunge been? And they asked me, and it was like 8 p.m., and I was at Gracie University, and I stood there, And when they asked me the question, my body started to respond like I was just in the cold plunge. So I started feeling I don't know if it was my skin or my muscles, I started feeling my body create heat. And I had only been in the cold plunge at, I think it was probably 8 a.m. that morning. And now it's 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night. This was a couple of days ago. And they asked me that. And I'm like, hold on. And I'm feeling it while I'm talking to the student.
Yeah.
And that was my first time that I had noticed it that strong 12 hours later. And I don't know what's happening or why that's even possible, but I know that it was a great feeling. And as for the benefits of the cold plunge, I'm still kind of learning them. And we could discuss those a little bit, but for me, it's a no-brainer. I get out of bed in the morning at 7:30, 7 a.m., 8 o'clock, depending on the day, and I just walk straight from my bed right to the cold plunge. And it's
nice.
40 degrees, 41 degrees, 42 degrees.
I love it. I've been doing them for about 3 or 4 years, and listeners have heard me say before, I was the last person in the world that I would have thought would be getting into the cold, because I'm from Florida, and I love warmth. I've never liked the cold. But once I started getting into this, it's truly amazing how your body feels. It when you get out, it literally feels like every cell was like switched on and they're just alive in a whole different way, right? And initially it was okay, because it's hard to make yourself. I've been at these events when a lot of crowds are going to do it, and you see people's primal fear, being evoked, and they're like, "Good gosh, we got to get into this." But initially it was like, okay, let me jump in and survive it. And it's all about, the breathing. The breathing was the core of it for me. And because if I could breathe through that, what's traffic or something else going to do to me, right? Just breathe. But I got to a place that, the first 15 or 20 seconds will be intense now. And then it's not just enduring it. It is, a full Zen-like experience. I can really totally surrender, relax. I can get my heart rate down to 50 or below, and it's just an amazing experience.
Yeah, I'm not sure about what my heart rate is, but now that you're saying that, I want to know my heart rate also. And when it comes to breathing, I'm sure you have some things you can teach me, because I am breathing. Obviously, you can't not breathe and go in the cold plunge, but I'm wondering if there are more breathing skills that I could learn, which I'm sure there are, and I've watched a little bit of Wim Hof stuff.
Yep.
But I need to learn more. I need to give it a little more attention, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I've been into breathing for a long time, and I'm currently actually going to go through starting in 2 days, starting the Wim Hof instructor program. So I constantly love to continue learning and growing along those lines and everything. But, one of the benefits for me has been, or that I've learned about, is the not only the hormetic stress, where it's different than the stress is bad and chronic through our society and tears us down, but the adaptive stressor, like if you go run up a hill or go work out or whatever, you put that demand on your body, but it grows stronger from that type of stress. It's the same with this, but also, years ago we were exposed to the elements more, heat, cold, and our blood vessels had to constrict and dilate a lot more. But now, so much of our society in this day and age keeps everything as constant as possible, as comfortable as possible, air conditioner, heat, all this. So we kind of lose our ability on a certain level to go back and forth, but consciously making ourselves go in like sauna or cold, it really exercises those small blood vessels and keeps them really pliable and in great shape.
Yes, I hear that, and I've heard the talk as to how we are constantly turning on the AC or turning on heaters or overdressing. And I agree. And that's a great point. And I can imagine that a lot can be done for our, like you said, it's on a cellular level and immune boosting, right?
Yes.
Because our immune systems can be trained and can be strengthened, so to speak.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I do think it's cool. I noticed you started doing. I knew that Aaron Sundstrom had taken everybody through an ice bath at one of the Jiu Jitsu Lifestyle Summits. So I didn't know if that was your first time, but it's good to hear kind of the backstory of when you started experiencing it in the ocean and everything too. It's pretty cool.
Yes, that was my first time going in ice, all
Yes.
around ice. That was probably 34 degrees with Aaron. But before Aaron, I have done like, really cold, like 50 degree, 48 degree, like whether it be a lake, or a waterfall.
Yes.
And I'll go under a waterfall. So I've always had a draw to that, but I never got the idea of buying, pounds and pounds and pounds of ice and throwing it in an inflatable pool and going in that. That just seemed a little bit, not even that it was too difficult, because I did it really well and I was confident in myself, but just like a lot of work.
Yeah, I agree. So I, for a while, was doing, just buying ice. And then since I do it so frequently, I bought, and this is the kind of cheap version of the kind of thing you have, and I may look at that as well, but I bought a chest freezer, keep it plugged in, keep it full of water, and it has a liner in it, and keep it right above freezing. So it doesn't totally freeze over. Sometimes it does start accumulating some ice and I break it up and then unplug it right before I get in. And it keeps it as close to freezing as possible, but, without having to deal with the ice all the time.
That's very cool. Yeah, I've heard of people doing that. I have many friends who have made these cold plunges, ice tubs kind of on their own, and that's great. The one that I have is very, very nice. It's like it's what you put in a spa,
Yeah.
It's an investment, but it's beautiful, and it fits perfectly in my backyard. And when it came to my just moving into this new home, I think that it's the look that my wife wants.
Nice.
In the backyard. It's like a nice spa looking. It looks so beautiful and sleek. So I'm very happy with the product.
Best of all worlds, right?
Yeah, everybody wins. Speaking on the cold plunge, my wife Victoria was a little bit like, I don't know. 'Cause even though it's a beautiful thing, she was like, yeah, where's it going to go? And then, a month after we got it, she injured herself. And she was told to do, hot, cold.
Yes.
And she was in the cold plunge every day for 30 days because she hurt her ankle. And then she read some books. I think Marcus Aubrey spoke about the cold plunge somewhere in a book or something, and how good it is only in the morning and how good cold is and cold showers. And then she came to me and she was like, man, I was a little hesitant, kind of like shooting down the cold plunge. And I'm so glad you got it. So it's kind of cool how in full circle, man. She was a little bit like, what are you doing? But then later, now she's all about the cold plunge.
That's awesome. I get that with my wife a lot. Not sure why I'm doing something. And then later, okay, all right, it's cool. I'm glad you did it. So as long as it leads to that, it's good, right? And But you mentioned it as an investment. I think that's an important point, because too many times there could be something that might really benefit you, but you just look at, the monetary cost, and whether it's a cold plunge or even a sauna or whatever it may be, really looking at investing in your own health and vitality is, I think, a great thing. So.
Yes, it's really a good idea. And I also got an infrared sauna from a friend of mine who moved, and he sold it to me for very cheap. I haven't used it yet. I've had it for a couple months now. Also, Victoria has used it. So for me, I'm of an energy right now of creating, an environment for myself where I can make time to meditate and to do yoga and to do foam rolling and infrared sauna, the cold plunge. How can I spend more time stretching? I mean, if I could spend, an hour and a half per day, that's a long time. Just really investing in my body or my mind or my body on a cellular level, right? On a, and on a physical, like, on my muscles and so on, and my joints. I have these mobility programs that I do that are very helpful. Also taking my body through full range of motion, every joint through full range of motion. If I can do these things every day, I lead a great example for my children. They see me doing it. They already copy me going in the cold plunge or doing these exercises. Now they jump in only for 7 seconds.
Sure.
But they're exposed to it.
Yes.
And that's my job, is to expose my children to the things that I know that they're going to need. And there's no doubt that it might not be when they're 14, 17, but the things that I'm doing now, even what we expose ourselves to in terms of food and what are we eating, what are we drinking, how are we thinking, how are we approaching challenging moments. And when you expose your children to this, your children just grow up differently, and travel, and the ability to travel, and how to work hard, and how to follow through and finish something, and how to be able to listen to instructions and, be led by someone. What can I give my children? And there's so much. And I'm so grateful that jiu-jitsu is almost like going to be given to them with automatically. It's just natural. So I'm very blessed that is me and that I am jiu-jitsu. But now let's move on, and their exposure to the people around me, whether it be Henner, who's an amazing, example for them, or it be my wife, or it could be, Eve, Henner's wife, or many other friends and family members of ours. What can they learn from people around them and, become the children that I guess this world needs, right? Which is just
that's right,
more educated and more compassionate. Who knows, like more emotionally available. There's so much I can invest in my children, and in terms of like lifestyle and protecting your body and your health, because of how much have done jiu-jitsu my whole life. Right now, I'm in very much a rebuilding phase. Even though I have no injuries and I feel great, I'm thinking long-term protecting myself and my health more than ever as I turn 40 next year or this year.
I can totally relate, not to turning 40 because I'm way beyond that, but as far as making it, such a priority. For years, I kind of dabbled, and I would be semi-consistent here and there with self-care programs or, whatever you want to call them, resiliency. But in the last several years, I've just really made it a priority. And I'm at a similar place to you. I'm super committed every day to mobility, to breathing, to, just taking care of myself, meditating. And I do like modeling that to my kids. Kind of think it's weird sometimes, but it's okay. They're like, you're not like, the other parents. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm not trying to be. And eventually I'm planting a seed, like you said. So hopefully it'll have a really good, positive outcome at some point.
Yeah, you've inspired me in some ways. Like you said, you doing breathing and you learning these things, taking care of yourself and being active and being around, because I know that you're a little bit older than me.
Yes.
So you're one person of, 20 people that I know that I've been in contact with that are older than I am, that are prioritizing their health and their wellness. So I feel like I always have, but I want to take it to another level. I've been very fortunate to have my grandfather and my father who have always prioritized their health and wellness the same way I always have. So I've been fortunate to have them as, my main mentors and leaders and instructors. But now I'm looking for even more people out there. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. So let's shift a little bit and talk about something very exciting that you guys launched not that long ago, the 32 Principles. So how did this come about, and what led to it? It's an amazing thing. Well, let me just give a little thought for myself. Is I've always loved GU and the program, and since it came out, but if there was one thing that I guess was challenging for me after combatives, was just the sheer, especially going through kind of the linear initial program years ago, the sheer amount of volume of techniques. It was just like so much like techniques, and it's awesome. But the one thing I guess I had wished could have been different was, why aren't there more concepts and principles, or why can't I get exposed to more of those within? And when this came around, I was like, man, this is amazing. So speak on this, how it developed, and whatever you want to talk about with it.
Yeah, I feel it's been on our minds for years. When COVID hit, it was a great opportunity for us to, convert one of our private rooms into a full studio to film this. There's always going to be more techniques to teach people in jiu-jitsu, right? People are always discovering techniques, stumbling across new things, and they're mixing and matching techniques. And, we thought about Purple Belt Stripe 1, Stripe 2, Stripe 3, Stripe 4 for the Gracie University online curriculum for those people who are going through that linear program. Do we show more moves, like, 25 more lessons per stripe? And do we even have that many more techniques? And it would be a stretch for us to do that. So then naturally you sit there and you're like, hold on, what are people missing? And that's exactly what it is. People are missing the understanding of these micro principles. Because there are principles like efficiency, which we refer to it as the apex principle. And there are principles like, control. Amazing. These are huge principles. The principle of timing. Everybody understands those. But how exactly are we able to control our opponents? Or what exactly do we do to conserve energy and to be efficient with our movements? So then we started, how do we actually do these things? Because it's kind of abstract. It's like, what? I can't really pinpoint it. But then when we watch ourselves train and when we take notes on how we move, and we've been taking notes for a while in terms of these small micro principles that make efficiency possible, as well as control and timing, we realize something like head control is one of the principles. Or another one is acceptance. And how many different moments in a fight or in a grappling match, do I apply the acceptance principle? And that's the accepting of the inevitable, of what is going to come. And the answer is all the time. So acceptance could also be referred to as yielding, knowing when to yield. And that's a very simple principle. But for a lot of people, they have a hard time. They come from this mindset of no surrender, no retreat, right? Never give anything. But there's an art to knowing, hey, you know what? Right now, if I accept what has just happened to me, whether it be a grip that someone's accomplished, or a position someone's accomplished, or the balance that I am losing, if I can just accept this, I can maybe save energy. I can kind of roll with it and potentially take advantage of the situation on the other end. So the acceptance principle, it's so simple, but yet so difficult to apply when you're overly concerned with everything. And I say this because when people train jiu-jitsu, it's very common for a jiu-jitsu student to really want to look good and win every battle and always be in control and be on top all the time and never get submitted. And that's because they're thinking small. They're thinking short-term gratification, small picture. But jiu-jitsu, even though there is some short-term gratification, meaning you had a good roll, I feel good, I broke a sweat, and I might have tapped somebody out, or the move worked today. If that's why you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're probably not going to last very long. Now, if you think long-term, big picture, long-term gratification, then you realize that there are many battles, whether it's from stepping on the mat, driving through traffic, having to leave your family for 2 hours to go practice jiu-jitsu, whether you have an injury, or maybe it's financial difficulties, you can't afford it. And then there's the battles on the mat. There's so much difficulty around doing jiu-jitsu. And this is why you have thousands of people that are quitting all the time, that are dropping off the mat. People are joining, people are quitting. And it's because they are expecting themselves to perform at a certain level and to learn this. They have high expectations. I want to do good. I want to learn this. I want to invest in it. I want to grow, and I want to see that I'm growing. And it's difficult to stay on the mat when you're constantly, you don't have any way of measuring whether or not you're growing. Maybe you get a stripe here or there, you get a belt, but you're still like always under people. You're getting pinned down, and you're overwhelmed on the mat. So what I'm suggesting is that adopting these small principles, this is what the whole course is for. We know that a simple principle like the acceptance principle if someone can begin to dive into that and study that, that's just one principle of 32. They can find small opportunities and small victories only in the practice, in the application of one principle. So number one, identifying it and using it in class and throughout sparring is exciting, it's rewarding, and it makes you, feel like, wow, I'm growing somewhere, I'm going somewhere. And number two, it will actually help your overall performance, because the acceptance principle is an efficiency principle. It's very much helping you be more efficient on the mat, which efficiency is you conserving energy and you knowing what battles to fight kind of thing. So if people can have a more enjoyable practice and they can perform, and part of what's more enjoyable is not only learning and connecting the dots, but also performing, having a little bit better performance, whether it be a month later or 3 weeks later after you study a principle like this one, for example. So that is kind of what our goal is. Our goal is to help you not only have more fun learning and for it to make more sense, but also for you to become more effective with your jiu-jitsu. So these 32 principles can help make that possible.
Well, I certainly feel like it's doing that and going to do it for tons of people. It increases awareness on such a great level. And whether you apply the new filter to something you've learned, like say you have a technique and then you're exposed to this, increases your awareness and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know I was doing that. Or like you said, how often am I using that? It gives you a whole broader kind of context and vision. But also then if you're going to learn a new technique, you're learning in that whole new awareness as well. So both ways, whether you already have a technique that you apply or realize that you're applying this and when and how, or any new information you're going to learn having this filter going forward. I think it's just amazing. Love it.
Yes. It simplifies jiu-jitsu. That's the goal.
Yes.
The goal is to simplify it. And the other day I taught a lesson and the student said to me, he said, what principles right now are we doing? And I said, man, we're using the anchor principle, and we're anchoring the person's limbs, their arm to their own hip. We're also using a little bit of the connection principle. We're using the redirection principle. So I spoke to him, and I went back to the movements. I did it lightly when I first taught it, but I went back through it again, mentioning the principles that are being utilized. And he's like, yes, I see it. I can see his excitement because he's watching the lessons online. So now it's almost like I can imagine that it clicked even more, and the chances of him forgetting techniques is part of learning techniques. But how much he forgets is going to be a lot less because he is tying what he learned to the principles that were being used.
Absolutely. How's the feedback been? I know it appears that sales-wise it's going well. What's kind of feedback have you guys getting, or any surprises in doing this?
Amazing feedback. I guess what's cool is when I hear people say, "Man, I know this, but I have not explored this to the depth that you guys are taking it. This makes perfect sense. And you know what? I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to take it I'm going to take it to the depth that you guys suggest. I'm going to take it further than I previously had." And that's what's kind of cool is because, for example, like I just said, acceptance or yielding. When to yield, okay, everybody has had that discussion, or most people who've been around for a while, you know what, there's a time to yield here or there. But they're potentially not taking full advantage of that principle. So when people are excited about it and they say, you know what, I can do more of this, and I know it's going to help my jiu-jitsu, then that's really cool to hear, especially when someone who has experience. So I've really enjoyed talking a few friends of mine that are, black belts, for example, And those are the ones that they're like, wow, you know what? Of course, I'm going to do this. This is amazing. Thank you so much. It feels great. It makes perfect sense. I love it. Because I had no doubt that if you're a blue belt, a white belt, a blue belt, a purple belt, guaranteed, I'm very confident with that person. Now, with a brown belt or a black belt, a little part of me was like, I wonder if black belts are going to enjoy it and if they're going to, like, really see the value in this, because they're a black belt and I'm a black belt. Even though, you know, I might have more years than them, they're still black belts, and I give them a lot of credit. So when I get feedback from more experienced black belts and instructors around the world, that is very comforting to me, and it really means a lot when I get that feedback. So grateful for that.
Excellent, excellent. One aspect that just came to mind that I really appreciate is in the way you guys designed it into the curriculum is not only do you ask for, okay, what techniques is this going to enhance, right? First you show examples, you know, of the principles within certain techniques, and then what techniques are you currently going to enhance and make better through this? And then going outside, where have you learned something completely somewhere else that you see the concept or can apply the concept? It's really cool. Just adds a whole nother layer to it, you know?
Yes, people are constantly being exposed to techniques, and so we ask them throughout the lessons to look at the techniques that you've been exposed to and identify principles that are at play. And it's whether they're exposed to a technique from a YouTube video or at a seminar somewhere, or maybe just you and a friend are in a garage and you're both blue belts, and you yourselves stumbled across something, and you're like, wow, we do this, this, and this. There's a move here. And if there's a move, if there's a technique, we can guarantee that there are also principles there. And looking at those principles, identifying them, can help you potentially enhance the technique that you were taught, you know, from someone else or you discovered. So just constantly keeping principles around and looking through a lens. Like, it's almost like you're looking at everything that you see and everything that you do through the lens of 1, 2, 3, 4, as many principles as you like.
Nice. Well done. Congratulations on that. I know you're impacting a lot of people through this, and excellent. Way to go. I want to shift a little bit here on a couple other things I want to discuss with you. One thing is I just saw where Gracie Survival Tactics, GST, is being featured on HBO. So that's pretty exciting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a great interview that Henner did on HBO. It was a few weeks ago, but it just aired. Very good conversation that he did. And basically, you know, it goes back to the conversation of police officers. You know, is jiu-jitsu the answer? And how police officers are grossly undertrained, and they don't have access to training, to hands-on grappling, not as much as they need. And jiu-jitsu is the answer. Yes. And what's been happening right now throughout the country, it's happening at a handful of CTCs as well as other jiu-jitsu schools, is that police departments are partnering with civilian-owned jiu-jitsu schools. So that was part of the discussion. I have not watched the special. I was sitting next to Henner throughout a lot of the interview. I was hanging out there, and we were doing a GST class in Northern California as well. But part of the discussion is just that, you know, let's get police officers training at civilian-owned schools, and let's have the police department support that, both with, you know, support it, meaning pay for it. If the police departments can pay for their training at a civilian-owned school, then that shows that the police department is behind the police officers being exposed to more grappling and hands-on techniques. So, very important discussion. Very important HBO segment that everybody should listen to. And I myself, and the thing is this, Henner talks about it in the interview, the amount of injuries to officers has gone down tremendously with these police departments that are partnering with local jiu-jitsu schools. And the injuries to the suspects have gone down tremendously. So there's only good comes from a police officer that is more confident, and he's more confident because he's better prepared.
Yes.
So only good comes from this. And those of us that do jiu-jitsu, like, it's kind of silly. Like, well, obviously, get the guy a blue belt, get him training jiu-jitsu, and then have him do his job. And we just know it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But that's a very small number of people that understand how obvious this is.
It's true.
So HBO is late to the party. But
better late than never.
HBO, correct. It's still good that HBO is here, because HBO is going to now expose this to people. Hender's interview was so great that it's people who don't even really understand how powerful jiu-jitsu is.
Right.
Are going to watch this and say, of course, this makes perfect sense. And they already have the data to prove it. It's already happening at schools. And what happens is, it's going to get to a point, and this is also discussed in the interview, I'm not sure if they used it, but it's going to get to a point where if you're a police department and you are not giving your police officers, your officers, 1 hour a week of jiu-jitsu training, the world and your community and the people around you are going to look at you and say, what is wrong with you guys?
Right.
Because so many police agencies are sending their officers to do GST. And GST is one step. But the next step is to create this, this regular training schedule where officers are not just doing they're not just learning, the mandatory, let's just say 4 hours per year or 2 hours per year of what is, mandated by the state and the department. That's not enough. So when police departments have jiu-jitsu schools around them, when they have the ability to send their instructors to the GST course and to do these courses, and they don't, then it's like, hey, you guys, please, the whole world is doing it.
That's right. And, I mean,
departments are all doing it around the world. Join the party.
Yeah, join the party. And it's so needed. First of all, the HBO thing, I'm glad to see, because it's exposure that jiu-jitsu needs. I mean, we need to spread it, because, like you said, the people that are already in it, that we know, but it's such a challenging time, and it's always been challenging to be a law enforcement officer, but in this day and age, and it's so important that they get good training instead of, less funding. Fund the training, get this going, and there's so many positives from, like you said, less damage to them physically, health-wise, less damage to potential perpetrators, as well as, workman's comp cases, all these things, so many ways that it adds up into a positive. So got to do it for sure.
Yes. Police officers, more than ever, are they're vocal about, hey, we want more training.
Right.
We need it. They want it. Whereas I feel like maybe, 20 years ago, it was kind of like you didn't want to say you wanted more training. But now, more than ever, people are seeing that, you might become a police officer after, you graduated high school and you decided to become a police officer. You don't have the experience in terms of hands-on, grappling and training. So
right.
There's no shame right now in being a police officer and saying, you know what, I don't know what to do, and I want to learn it.
Right.
How can I learn it? So thank you to the police officers that are going out there and they're making that statement, saying, hey, we want to learn more. And they're reaching out to us, and they're doing jiu-jitsu, whether it be with us or with any jiu-jitsu school around the world. They're taking the steps. So very proactive police officers, and they're on the mat. They're probably listening to us right now. And think about it. They're really the ones that we need to thank. Obviously, we thank you to all the people who teach jiu-jitsu and the instructors and so on. But for the police officers that say, you know what, this is the way.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much supporting and they're backing jiu-jitsu. And then from there, you get 5 more, 1 more, 3 more, 20 more. And before you know it, you have a whole department because someone said, I need more, and this is what I'm going to do. This is what we need to do.
That's right.
So it's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and much respect to everyone that serves in that capacity. Much respect. So a topic that is really gaining a lot of exposure right now, Ryron, and I would actually plan to talk to you about this, and then ironically just saw a video this morning from Henner and Eve about sexual predators in jiu-jitsu and that whole state of things that more and more is coming out about how often this happens and the culture that breeds it. Can you share your thoughts on just this whole situation?
Yeah, it's a situation that jiu-jitsu is so cool and so fun and so powerful, and everybody, people from all walks of life, all different types of characters and people, and that can be people who are good characters, who have integrity and good solid people, as well as people who lack integrity and who are people who make bad decisions, and people that are in pain, and negative people. So all types of people are exposed to jiu-jitsu, and they all gravitate towards it for different reasons. And no matter what you do, there's always going to be people that we don't think that are not the best for the environment, right? That just, you're just not someone, you're not the energy that the martial arts needs. And because anybody can walk on the mat and start learning jiu-jitsu, you almost allow anybody potentially start teaching jiu-jitsu if they really want to and they show dedication. And Henner and Eve spoke about it, right? And there has to be some sort of almost like a filter, or we need to really be aware of the people that we are allowing to teach this art. Because when you put someone in a teacher's role, you give them a lot of power. And back to what I said, you get these people that are not the best people. They don't have the best intentions. And you put them in a position of, to learn jiu-jitsu, and they learn for 3 years, 6 years, 7 years. And before you know it, they say, I want to teach this. And now they're a brown belt or a black belt, and they start teaching jiu-jitsu. And now they have 200 students. And now they're in a very, very powerful position, but they lack the character, and like I said, the integrity to even be in that position. But who's going to tell them that? Because anybody can open a jiu-jitsu school and start teaching jiu-jitsu. And they talked about this, right? And Henner and Eve talked about it. There's no governing body that says, you can teach and you can't teach. My neighbor can lease a building. He doesn't even know what jiu-jitsu is. He can lease a building and go open a school and say, I teach Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Now, when people walk in the building, it's on them to look around and ask the questions. But if he has some good pictures with a bunch of different instructors around the world, and he has the right belt on, and he shows a technique that makes sense, and they feel empowered, before you know it, they believe this person. It's convenient, it's close to their house. So it's it's not gonna go anywhere. We're always gonna have, people that are, we could say, for, bad people.
Right.
In powerful positions, in all walks of life. And this is not only jiu-jitsu instructors, right? It's in all walks of life. Now, the discussion right now is around jiu-jitsu, and it's a very powerful role to be in, and it's unfortunate, and all we can do is continue to, we ourselves, Gracie University, is to really, do background checks and look at who we are allowing to teach jiu-jitsu and really vet everybody. And other organizations can do the same thing. Other, lead black belt, other black belts that have organizations and have affiliations, they can do the same thing. They can look at all their instructors and see who they have, and that just lessens the chances of these inappropriate actions taking place, where instructors or advanced students, take advantage and, assault someone, and they basically abuse their power.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? With great power comes great responsibility, and to use that to your advantage, right? It's such an unfair way. Imagine someone, right? The person comes to class, they want to become a student in jiu-jitsu, and they start training for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they give themselves, they basically give their trust in the hands of their instructor, and the instructor abuses it and harms somebody, and it forever changes their life. This student who put themselves in the hands of their instructor. So very dangerous world, and do your research before you start training, and be on the team, right? And I always see Ty Gay talking about it, right?
Yeah.
Ty Gay is very passionate about calling out these predators that are jiu-jitsu instructors or jiu-jitsu students, but there's no room for that, and he very much puts everybody on blast, and it's beautiful, and I'm very grateful for him, as well as like Henner and Eve. It was an amazing talk that they did. I listened to it last night, and it's a never-ending battle.
It is.
Right? So be aware of it, and do your best to be supportive, especially of women that are on the mat. It's a very male-dominated, activity. So for all the men that are on the mat, all the connections that you can make that are with women on the mat that are pure and they're honest connections. Like, hey, you're one of us, you're one of our training partners, you're part of the team, and to treat the woman with full respect, right? And
yes.
And be attuned and really talk to the woman and notice the small things, whether it be from another student or an instructor, but for the men in the room to constantly be looking out for everybody in the room, the men and the women, but especially the women, when you notice anything of, an inappropriate nature, a type comment or a look, because they're for sure, there's constantly things, and this is a very interesting topic. It never ends in terms of, the small comments and jokes and things that men say or do around women. And everybody is guilty of this at some point of their lives.
Sure.
And it's just important that whether it's when you were 14 or 18 or 35 years old, that you realize that your small comments and the small things that you're doing, that you're trying to be funny and make a joke, that's not what that person is there for. They're not on the mat learning jiu-jitsu for you to make fun and make a joke at their expense, or to be spoken to in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable. So we have to look out for the women on the mat and in the world. But for now, the discussion is on the mat.
Right.
Because they want to be there and they want to learn this stuff and they want to be on the team. So anything that crosses the line is unacceptable and needs to be talked about. And that's not easy to do, because sometimes, they talked about this in the interview yesterday, is that sometimes unacceptable things that are done, that happen, there is done by somebody of higher rank, mm-hmm. or somebody who is, a cool person, and they've been around for much longer. So there's this almost like this fear, right, to say, hey, don't say that. Don't make that comment, because maybe you're a blue belt and the person who made the comment is a brown belt, or is the instructor. But you have to really be in tune with what you feel. And the other day, someone made a comment around me. It wasn't on the mat, but it was it was a jiu-jitsu student. He made a kind of a joking comment, and it was the women were not around, and they had walked away. And when he made the comment, I was like, hey, unnecessary. You see, very small, and he's by no means a sexual predator, but even his comment, I don't even have any room for that comment. in the situation that we're in.
Right. It's a very important conversation to be having, and I'm glad it's going on, and the awareness is increasing. And one point that Aaron and Eve make is, there's going to be discomfort in training, but don't mistake that as the not listening to that inner voice, not confusing that discomfort as something that's part of training. You're going to be in comfortable positions, rolling and all that, but if you feel discomfort and you feel that inner voice saying something's not right here, that's totally different. Make that distinction and go forward with that. So yes,
100%, and it's very obvious, and women, I'm not even sure. I imagine women more than ever. I know my wife way more than me is very in touch with that level of discomfort. And Victoria has taught me a lot in terms of because I'm very privileged, right? I'm over here walking around a black belt, you know what I mean? 200 pounds. 6'3", almost 6'4", so I just lay down and sleep wherever I want on the sidewalk, and it's a whole different world that I live,
right.
And my wife lives, and she has done a great job of just really exposing me to how much she has to deal with on a regular basis, just simply being a woman.
Yeah.
And so much of this comes at the hands of men, and so much of it can be avoided if men simply grow up and understand that you're not the only one. So even though you might think that you're being funny for one moment, and I'm kind of shifting a little more to the lighter side of things, and that's not to dismiss the seriousness of jiu-jitsu instructors abusing their power and, assaulting women and being completely, out of bounds. And they need to pay for that, and that's unacceptable. But on the lighter side of things, this kind of culture of whether it be, kind of commentary towards women, and Victoria deals with so much of this, as do so many women, and me being aware of that really changes the way that I just communicate with someone or make a point to acknowledge a woman or make a point to pay attention to everything that's around me, because sometimes it's happening right under my nose and I'm oblivious to it. But if I can start to call out these small little acts, then I can start to set the example and show people that there's no need for you to say that. There's no women present, and the way that you're speaking right now is unnecessary. And men will follow me. They're going to listen to me. So when they, for the last 12 years, they make this joke, and then all of a sudden, I say, I can see how you think that's funny, but that's not a joke that I really appreciate because of this.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, they're like, oh, wow, okay. That's not how I interact with Hidon. So now it asks them to exist differently in my presence, and then from my presence on to, the next person. And now potentially I can be affecting how they interact with all people, because they realize that is not acceptable, and that is not how we want to exist.
Absolutely.
Both in our small world of Gracie University, but as well on the big picture of things. We're moving past this, okay?
Yes.
It's a new day.
Yes. And you can be an effective agent for change, as we all can, with increased awareness and desire to do so. So,
yes.
I know you got something else to get to, but before we leave, I just want to ask you, I know there's probably no immediate plans because of, the current situation and COVID and all that, but Jiu-Jitsu Lifestyle Summit, any thoughts on when it's possible, what might happen along those lines?
Yeah, I think the Jiu-Jitsu Lifestyle Summit for me is a very fun thing to do, and I enjoy it. I don't think it will happen this year, but I think that it is something that I want to do, and whether I don't know where to do it, but I am excited about it. And one of the most, amazing things about Jiu-Jitsu is just the cool, the special, the beautiful people, the camaraderie, the energy, just being around people, having the conversations, the support. So the Jiu Jitsu Lifestyle Summit, that's exactly why we do it. It's because we want to connect at a little bit of a different level than we normally do. So I need to start kind of digging in and figuring out when that makes sense to do. So I have no plans right now, but California is not on my mind to have it in California right now because we're back to masks again. And
yeah, no, we're going to need to bring it to the East Coast next time, man.
Who knows?
All right.
But it's a very special thing, and thank you for asking about it.
Sure.
It means a lot to me. Hopefully we'll make it happen sooner than later.
Right on. All right, my friend. I really appreciate your time, and it's been a pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you for everything you're doing and all the lives you're impacting, brother.
Thank you so much, and I hope to see you on the mat soon. And as well as, all the listeners out there, thank you for listening, as well as, being part of this Jiu-Jitsu team and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu team. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Much respect, brother. Cheers.
Later, bro.
All right, Ryron Gracie. Always a pleasure getting up with and connecting with Ryron. Such a positive force for Jiu-Jitsu. All right, just a reminder about the Breathing for BJJ program. This is a program I designed to take your breathing to a much higher level on and off the mat by increasing your functional capacity to breathe. It takes a biomechanical approach and allows you to regulate your breathing on the mat and bring more joy into your jiu-jitsu. Check it out today at www.breathingforbjj.com. All right, up next is the Make a Difference, Make it Impact segment.
Your comfort zone is your enemy. One of the biggest ironies I can think of is when you live life trying to stay comfortable, life will send you more and more discomfort. It's true, life will send you more and more problems. Life will keep throwing rocks at you. Life will keep handing you resistance, struggles, issues. And because people are so concerned about staying comfortable instead of growing and reaching higher, because people don't want to address their limitations and move beyond them, they keep struggling. Listen, you are not here on this planet to sip apple martinis on the beach and get yourself a tan. You are here to grow. And if you won't make yourself uncomfortable, life will give you plenty of reasons to push you out your comfort zone. So you have one of two options. Either you commit to constant growth and feeling discomfort upon your own accord, and you become the master of your own destiny, or you hand over the keys and you let life happen to you by default. One path leads to success, and the other path leads you to constant struggle and pain. It's your choice. You think Steve Jobs started Apple feeling comfortable about it? You think top athletes sleep their way to high performance? You think Oscar-winning actors procrastinate their way to achievement? No! So then why are you giving into wasting time with Netflix marathons, into chronic procrastination? Why are you running to the bar the moment your best friend texts you to come out? You have got to be willing to make the hard decision. You've got to be willing to feel uncomfortable, to feel awkward, to face rejection, to fail, to feel pressure. You've got to be willing to face those things because that's what's necessary for you to grow. How many times have you looked at your life and said, man, if only I knew then what I know now, I live my life so differently, so is it not possible then that the life you are living now, you would be living differently if you began to develop an awareness that you do not currently have? Well, guess what? The only way for you to develop knowledge and awareness is to try things you have not yet tried, to do things you have not yet done, to create things you have not yet created, to go to places you have not yet explored. This is how you grow. That is how you become the person who is worthy of sitting on the beach with their favorite drink. Life rewards you with those experiences after you do the work. There is a real price to success, and life collects the payments. And let me tell you something, life does not accept payment plans. Life does not let you get away with experiencing things that you have not yet earned. Your sacrifice must be paid up front and in full, and that is the only way you are going to achieve the life that you want. So I strongly suggest that you begin to pay with your discomfort. I strongly suggest that you start making those calls, that you start approaching that person, that you start practicing kindness and compassion over jealousy and greed, that you confront your anxiety, that you hit the gym, that you study harder, that you jump higher, that you begin waking up early, even if you're not a morning person, that you destroy your procrastination, that you start doing the things that you know within your heart that you should have started doing a long time ago, so you can start to build the experiences and the knowledge that you need to succeed. That is what I suggest to you. And don't listen to this as a voice on a video over some music. Listen to this as a direct sign, a direct message that life is giving to you to wake you up, to help you acknowledge your own greatness. It's time. It's time for you to get uncomfortable. It's time for you to start dreaming again and start going after what was always yours, but what you've ignored for far too long. And I promise, when you push yourself into discomfort, your friends will take notice, your colleagues will take notice, your family will take notice, life will take notice, and life will begin to back you up. Life will begin to support you and open doors for you and introduce you to the people who will take you to the next level, but you have got to take the first step. So take it and watch your life explode into greatness. Watch new levels of the game unfold for you. Watch you develop into the person who you have always wanted to become. It's all waiting for you outside of your comfort zone. Go for it.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you feel like you're benefiting from the show and want to show your support, you can support us on our Patreon page and a link in the show notes. Please like and follow us on social media and help us spread the word by reposting our posts and telling others about the show. You can leave comments on the website at www.GracieJujitsuRocks.com. You can also go to iTunes and leave comments as well as rate the show, and we would appreciate a 5-star rating, which helps us with our standing in iTunes. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel. If you have suggestions for the show, please don't hesitate to give those. We always like feedback and suggestions. Okay, that's going to do it. So until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.